She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Fragile skull. I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know, and
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. How are you? How are you doing today? I am a little sick, so my voice is weird, and there's going to be times I'm going between hot and cold, so I'm going to take my shirt off, put it back on. Who knows? Anything could happen. But let's get into today's video. Today's video is about a 15-month-old baby, a little girl named Evelyn Boswell. Many of you have been requesting this case in this video. In fact, I think I would say it's probably been my top requested video since it's happened, and I've been paying attention to it. I've been watching it happen. I've been watching it unfold. But like I said in the last video where we talked about this, I don't like to just kind of dive right into the case, especially confusing ones like this, because you kind of know more information's going to surface and you kind of wait for that. At least I do, because I want to have a better understanding of the whole larger picture, the broader picture. And I think now I do enough to at least make this video and then updates later on this case as it develops. There are a lot of people involved in this case, not as much as the Vallow-Daybell case, but still enough where it might get confusing. So let's go over the cast of characters. Let's go over the people involved now before we get started, and then I'll refresh your memory and mine as we discuss them in more detail. So this is Evelyn Boswell, and she is a 15-month-old baby girl who was reported missing on February 18th of 2019 in Blountville, Tennessee. And this is 18-year-old Megan, or Maggie Boswell, and she's Evelyn's mother. We also have 42-year-old Angela Boswell, Megan's mother and Evelyn's grandmother, and we have Angela's boyfriend, 33-year-old William McLeod. Now, Tommy Boswell Sr. is Evelyn's grandmother, and he'd be the one who'd eventually report her missing. And then we have Tommy Boswell Jr., who's Tommy Boswell Sr.'s son and Angela's son, Megan's brother, and little Evelyn's uncle. We also have Ethan Perry. Ethan is Evelyn's biological father. He's in the Army, and when this all went down, he was stationed at Fort Polk, Louisiana. Then we have Hunter Wood. Now, Hunter Wood has been referred to in the media as Megan's boyfriend, but according to him, they just dated briefly for a few weeks in December. Okay, so on February 18th, Evelyn's grandfather, Tommy Boswell Sr., called DCS and claimed he was concerned about the baby because he hadn't seen her since Thanksgiving. Now, this would be Thanksgiving of 2019, obviously. Now, the next day, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, known here on out as just the TBI, issued an Amber Alert for the little girl. Megan Boswell, Evelyn's mother, told police the last time she saw her daughter was on December 26th. That would mean she would have known her baby was missing for over 5 weeks without reporting her missing. And due to this information, as well as many other similarities, this case has been compared to the Casey and Kaylee Anthony case, which we're all far too familiar with. On February 21st, the TBI reported that investigators were looking for a gray 2007 BMW, and they provided the license plate number. They said that the individuals traveling in it were connected to Evelyn Boswell somehow. On this same day, Sullivan County Sheriff Jeff Cassidy held a press conference telling the public that this case was unlike anything he'd ever been involved with. He said there was a lot of questions still unanswered, but that both Megan Boswell, the mother, and Ethan Perry, the father, had been involved and were working with the police. Now, keep in mind that Ethan Perry was out of state, and it appeared that Megan Boswell had full custody of Evelyn because she had given birth to Evelyn out of wedlock, And in the state of Tennessee, when this happens, the mother's granted full custody. Sheriff Cassidy also said that during the investigation, they had been made aware of a person of interest that they'd like to speak to, which could lead to additional information. And then he went on to describe the gray BMW with Tennessee tags. Now, reporters at the press conference were really curious about who had first reported Evelyn missing, naturally, as well as how much the lapse of time between her going missing and her being reported missing would hinder the investigation, since usually the first 48 hours are the most important in a missing persons case. Now, this is the first time we hear Sheriff Cassidy admit that he's getting a lot of conflicting information from the family of Evelyn, specifically her mother, Megan Boswell. But he wasn't able to release information of who they were looking to talk to affiliated with the BMW or who the BMW was registered to. When asked when the last time that the parents saw Evelyn was, Sheriff Cassidy said, quote, "I'm not going to go with what the mother stated because, like I say, some of the conflicting stories are inaccurate. But a babysitter, and this is the day I'm going on, last saw the child on December 10th and 11th. So even though Megan claimed to have seen her daughter last on December 26th, Jeff Cassidy didn't seem to believe that this was a true and accurate date and considered Evelyn missing since the 11th of December, not the 26th. He said that Megan's stories weren't leading up to things that they'd went out and checked on, such as video surveillance and eyewitness testimony. So basically Megan would give her story and then they'd do what they do and they'd investigate, and what she was saying didn't match what they were discovering in the investigation. Cassidy also claimed in this press conference that he believed they were looking for a child who was still alive, but many of the questions from the media were answered with, this can't be released right now. This same day, February the 21st, Megan Boswell, this is Evelyns mother, remember, was in a Bristol family court for an undisclosed reason, and when she emerged, she was questioned by WCYB, a local news station. This is the first time that we really see Megan Boswell speak publicly, and during this interview she gave, there were a few red flags for me, but I thought initially, in this first interview, some of what she said truly did seem genuine. The thing that stuck out to me the most, though, was the fact that she kept repeating several times, "I just want her back." And this will always transport me back to the Chris Watts interview, because he says the same thing over and over again. "I just want them back. I just want them back. Please bring them back."
I mean, if they're watching, I just want them to bring her back. I just want her back.
How are you coping with all of this?
I just want her back.
And I know all of this is very hard. Can you tell me, how you're feeling?
I just want her back. That's all I want.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to the person or people that have her that you think they should hear from you?
They should just bring her back. They always know, what's going on, they need to bring her back home.
Can you tell me a little bit more about, how you're feeling? I know all of this is scary and everything.
It is. I just want her back. So just get her back. She's a very smart, very good baby. And I just want her back.
But she does talk a lot about Evelyn herself, her favorite food, her favorite song, which was, Baby Shark, what kind of personality she had, how much she liked to take baths, etc. The kinds of things that a mother would say about their baby if they truly loved them and knew them very well. And I felt she genuinely looked upset at times, like she was holding back tears. She brings up the investigation and the BMW, and she tells the reporter, "I'm sure you have an idea who has her," suggesting that whoever is in that car is the one who's taken Evelyn, even though during the press conference it was said that they didn't believe Evelyn was in that vehicle or with the people in the vehicle, just that they might have some information that would help. But then she says that she doesn't have any pictures of Evelyn on her. And this I found very odd. This could just be me, let me know in the comments, but it's 2020. Most everyone has a smartphone by now, especially an 18-year-old like Megan Boswell. And if you looked through my phone, if you look through my photos right now, you would find upwards of 500 pictures of each of my kids in my phone. So to hear that Megan didn't even have one picture of her daughter on her person, her daughter who was missing, that certainly struck me as odd, because if my baby wasn't with me, I would miss her so much I wouldn't have all these pictures on my phone so that I could look at her and watch the videos of her, because I'd miss her. Then she says that she knows who has her daughter, and she always has, but she didn't report her missing because she was afraid that this person would get spooked and take off, which is exactly what ended up happening. She says she's worried about where they are and what they're doing with Evelyn at that time. When the reporter asks Megan, is she worried about Evelyn's safety, she says, Well, now I am because they aren't answering phone calls. Meghan says she trusted this person, and that trust has now been broken, and she goes on to say that she hasn't spoken to Evelyns' father. In this interview, Meghan also can't remember, or at least doesn't verbalize, the exact last day she saw her daughter. When asked, she responds that she last saw her in December. And I thought that was very suspicious. Firstly, because you should remember, it's your baby. You should remember the last day, the last moment, the last second you saw your child. Secondly, I suspect she said in December, so she wouldn't get caught in a lie. The less specific she is, the more general she is, the less chance that she can be caught lying. And she's really always vague about the date. In the interview, somebody asked her a question about when things happened, and she said, whenever this whole thing started. So in general, she's trying to be very vague about the exact date. Also on February 21st, 2 people were arrested. The 2 people that were allegedly connected to the gray BMW that was being looked for by the TBI. These 2 people were Angela Boswell, mother to Megan Boswell and grandmother to the missing baby Evelyn Boswell, and her boyfriend William McLeod. They were both arrested on charges of theft over $2,500, and Angela was also held due to a parole violation. Now here's the weird thing with the BMW. It was reported stolen, but Angela's father claims that the car was given to his daughter by the on and off again boyfriend of her daughter, Megan, a man named Hunter Wood. He said, quote, "The day that my daughter received the car, Hunter Wood sat in our living room and told my wife and I that he was giving Angela the car so she would have a way to take the kids to the doctor." It turned out, however, that even if this was the case, even if this had been the plan, it wasn't Hunter's car to give since it was registered to and belonged to his mother. Now, when talking about the kids, I believe it's a reference to Megan's younger siblings. Angela Boswell, it seems, would give birth to multiple children. Her first when she was just 16 with her then boyfriend, Tommy Boswell Sr. This child was a boy, and he'd be given the name Tommy Boswell Jr. In 2001, Angela and Tommy Sr. became parents to a baby girl, Megan Boswell. And a few months later, they tied the knot. They got married. They made it, legit. Tommy Jr. and Megan didn't seem to have a very secure or safe childhood, however. In 2009, when Tommy Jr. was 14, there was reports of domestic violence from their home, with Tommy Sr. claiming his wife had attacked him and stabbed him in the neck with a pen. The situation apparently got so bad that Tommy Jr. had to get in between them and get involved to defend and protect his father. A few other small incidents happened, but then in 2012, Tommy Boswell Jr. and Sr. were arrested and charged with attempted murder. It seems Angela had brought a new man into her life, a man named Brandon Yates, and they were in bed sleeping when they were woken up by voices shouting outside. According to Angela, she knew it was her husband because she could hear his truck and recognized his voice. Brandon Yates went to the front door to see what was up, where he claims that Tommy Jr. was out there in the driveway demanding that he come outside and brandishing some sort of wooden club or bat. Yates did walk outside, and he was halfway down the driveway when he claims a Chevy pickup began driving straight towards him, and on the side of this truck were the words Tommy's Paving, a company that Tommy Sr. and Jr. ran together. Brandon Yates said he began to run away in fear for his life, but he could not obviously outrun the truck, and he was hit by it. At that point, 3 men, Tommy Sr., Tommy Jr., and someone else surrounded him and began beating him, but he was able to get free and run to a neighbor's house for help. Both Tommys were arrested, but 17 months later, Tommy Sr. and Angela were back on good terms, and they gave birth to another child, a son named Elijah. The peace would be short-lived. 2 months before Elijah's first birthday in 2014, Angela Boswell filed for divorce. The divorce went through a year later, and Angela was given custody of both Elijah and Megan, who was only 13 at the time. Tommy Jr. was over the age of 18, so he was kind of on his own. But then again, a year after that, Angela and Tommy were having another baby, a little girl named Charlotte. So it seemed that they were on again, off again, tumultuous kind of a love-hate relationship sort of thing. And in the fall of 2018, when Megan was pregnant with Evelyn, Angela and Tommy were on the rocks again, and from what I see, it seems like Angela herself moved around quite a bit with the kids. It wasn't a great environment to grow up in, needless to say. Angela had her driver's license suspended. She often got pulled over and, they would find her driving without a license. They'd find the kids in the back seat with no seatbelts on. She was put in jail multiple times for this. So Angela Boswell's in and out of jail, getting into some crazy antics, and her ex-husband, Tommy Boswell Sr., went to a judge to get custody, claiming that Angela consistently put their children in danger. He also tried to get a restraining order on her, even though at that time she was behind bars. He claimed she has stated that she's out for blood and she'll get revenge on me when she's released from jail. He also went on to say, I am in fear for myself and my children, Megan, Elijah, and Charlotte Boswell. She is using illegal drugs in front of our children, and she's exposing our children to criminals. So Tommy Sr. actually got custody of the kids, and they were moved in with him at the family compound, which was in Muddy Creek. But this didn't seem like enough to motivate Angela to turn herself around, because she was kept in jail when she was caught trying to sneak stimulant pills in. And when Evelyn was born, Angela Boswell was still in jail. It is unclear where Megan was living full time, but USA Today reports that due to photographs of Evelyn, it seems she was living at least part-time at the Boswell family compound at Muddy Creek. When Angela did get out of jail, she still didn't clean her act up, and in 2019 continued to add to her rap sheet with more driving offenses and shoplifting charges. So you can see there's a tense family dynamic here. Most likely Megan and her siblings grew up in a tumultuous household full of fighting and violence, and it does seem that her mother was into drugs and some criminal activity, some of which went down possibly in front of her children. And now this gray BMW that was reported stolen is in question. Was it really stolen? Or was it a gift? According to reports, Megan had been planning to buy it for her mother, but no money had actually been exchanged. And then Angela's father says, no, it was a gift. And the person at the center of this, who can clear everything up, he's not really talking, and he's gotten a lawyer. And that brings us to Hunter Wood, Megan's boyfriend or whatever he was. He claimed that he and Megan were just casually seeing each other for a few weeks in December, and that he'd never met Evelyn, although he knew about her. Apparently, Megan had told him that the baby was with her biological father, Evelyn's biological father, and he was on military leave for the holidays. According to Hunter Wood, he met Megan when she applied for a job at the restaurant he owned, which was called Hunter T's Chicken Shack, and they had an off-again, on-again romance. He claimed he had no relationship whatsoever with Evelyn, who he referred to as that child. He said, I had no relationship whatsoever with that child, and that kind of bothered me. I don't know why, but that sat wrong with me. He didn't say, I had no relationship whatsoever to Evelyn. That child, something about it just seems so impersonal and kind of cold. Hunter did mention something, however, about Evelyn breaking her arm while she was in the care of her father, Ethan Perry. He'd been told, most likely by Megan, that Evelyn had fallen off the bed, broken her arm, and that Ethan Perry had had to take her to the hospital. Now, there's rumors and speculations out there that Hunter was involved, that he knows more than he's saying. He disputes all of this. And like I said, he's allegedly enlisted the services of a lawyer, and he hasn't said anything else, at least to the press. Okay, so we have a bunch of people that pretty much know nothing, or they're lying about what they do know. A baby is missing. No one knows where she is. No one seems to be really that concerned about it. While Megan claimed, right, in her interview that she knew who she was with, but she wasn't telling, except that Megan Boswell would go on to give another interview on February 24th. And here, her story changes again. Earlier, she said the last time she saw her daughter was on December 26th, but in this interview, she recalls the last time being a little before Christmas. She then goes on to talk about her mother, Angela, telling reporters that her mother is the one who has Evelyn. She's a very vindictive, manipulative person. She wasn't that great of a mother. She then says that Angela dropped Evelyn off somewhere in Mendota, Virginia. And Megan did tell the police that Angela had brought Evelyn to a campground in Mendota. And the investigators went to this campground. They talked to people. They looked around. There was no sign of Evelyn, no sign that she had ever been there, no sign really that Angela had ever been there. And by this time, Angela Boswell and her boyfriend were already in jail in Tennessee. Megan claimed her mother Angela threatened her and told her not to tell anyone. And when the reporter asks if Angela has had Evelyn the whole time, Megan says, or the person who is in Mendota. Megan claimed that the night Evelyn went missing, Angela was just supposed to babysit while Megan was at work, but then she never brought Evelyn home. But then Megan also says that when Angela picked Megan up that previous Wednesday before she gave the interview, after Evelyn's been missing for a while, Megan told her about the Amber Alert, and that's when Angela freaked out and ran. The whole interview made no sense. Like, that part I just told you, it makes no sense. If your child's missing and you think that your mother has her somewhere or has left her with someone in Mendota, Virginia, and your mother is like picking you up from work or driving you around, wouldn't you demand to get your kid back? Wouldn't you demand your mother to tell you where your kid was? It makes no sense. She says she can't get into specifics, and then she goes from completely straight-faced and normal to crying. I just want her back. I just want her back, when asked if she has a message for Evelyn. This is also where Megan claims that her father, Tommy Boswell Sr., had been talking to Angela on the phone the night before he reported the baby missing, and he told her that he was going to call DFS, and Angela told him, "You're going to regret this. I'm going to have to leave and never come back. You will regret this." Now, this is just alleged. I don't know if it's alleged from Tommy or from Megan, but it's hearsay. Megan says the reason she didn't call about Evelyn was because Angela was threatening her. She had been giving conflicting statements to the press and to the police because she was trying to protect her mother, hoping that once she got arrested, Angela would just tell the police where Evelyn was. But obviously, she wasn't going to do that. And it would have been really nice if Megan had experienced this same protective instinct when it came to her innocent, defenseless baby daughter. On February 25th, Megan Boswell communicated with News Channel 11 via Facebook message that she was pregnant and that she'd been willing to take a polygraph, but they wouldn't let her because of her current condition. Now, according to Sheriff Jeff Cassidy, in a press conference a few days later, she'd never been asked to do a polygraph, and they don't even have a polygraph examiner. The TBI would have been the ones to do it, and they didn't have her scheduled for one. Additionally, they could absolutely give her a polygraph if she was pregnant, especially during the first trimester. And if the polygraph took place in the second or third trimester, the person would need a written note from their doctor, but ultimately it would be up to the person administering the test whether or not to give it. Additionally, on Monday, February 24th, there were 4 pregnant inmates housed at the Sullivan County Jail. The next day, when Megan was finally arrested and booked, there were still only 4 pregnant inmates, and no one had been released. Megan had been arrested for providing false reports to the police, and Sullivan County Jail records show she was not really pregnant at all, so she lied about that. She lies about everything. Sheriff Cassidy said, quote, "Every time we talk to her, the story changes. I'm serious when I say that, every single time." Megan was held on $25,000 bond while the search for her daughter continued. So let's fast forward to this week, March 6th, this past Friday, when authorities found remains believed to be that of 15-month-old Evelyn Boswell at the property in the 500 block of Muddy Creek Road, a property that belonged to Megan's father, Tommy Boswell Sr., the same man who had called in the report initially saying that he hadn't seen his granddaughter in some time. Investigators also found clothing matching the description of the clothes last worn by the baby, as well as other child's clothing, toys, and diapers. Previous to the discovery, on February 28th, investigators had searched a mobile home near Boone Lake. And the search warrant claimed that they were looking for a pillow and a piece of styrofoam. The warrant also covered any personal items that had belonged to baby Evelyn. Underneath the trailer, investigators were seen removing something in an orange or brown colored bag. Now, this trailer belonged to Tommy Boswell Jr., Megan's brother and Evelyn's uncle. But it appears he didn't live there at the time of the search. There was somebody else living there, and this guy had been in the trailer for a couple of months. Now, if you look at what was removed, if you can zoom in on like a still picture, I and others think it does look like a pillow. And why would they be looking for a pillow on the 28th? So in this kind of situation, I feel like we do have to do a little speculating in order to make sense of it all. I do admittedly turn to Facebook groups and Reddit because actual legitimate news sources aren't going to print something that's just, a rumor. That being said, a lot of these people that are sometimes called armchair detectives in what I believe to be a derogative way, they dig up some real good information, some interesting things. In one Facebook group, it said that while in prison, Angela Boswell, Megan's mother, claimed to a cellmate that Megan had accidentally smothered Evelyn with a pillow. There's also some questions about whether the child's remains were on that property the whole time, or whether they'd been moved. No doubt that the autopsy will answer many of these questions. If it is actually Evelyn Boswell, I believe that it is, what her cause of death was, and if the remains were always at that one place or had been moved. The issue here is we have a case that's full of sketchy characters, right? We can't really even look at the people involved and say, I see who's responsible. I see who to point the finger at and blame. I certainly believe that Megan Boswell knew more than she's saying, and I also believe that she knew most likely the entire time that her daughter was no longer alive. And this is very reminiscent of Casey Anthony, because unless you know for a fact that your baby is no longer alive, you don't stop looking. You don't kind of just let it slide. I don't care if you're an 18-year-old mother or a 48-year-old mother. If you love your child, you're going to look for them, and you're not going to rest until you find them, and you're not just going to kind of not even know who they're with, not know if they're safe. I mean, according to Megan, Evelyn had been taken by Angela, but then she was seeing Angela in the months that Evelyn was gone. So you knew that your child wasn't with your mother. Didn't you wonder who she was with? If she was safe? If she was being cared for? If you knew she was in Mendota, Virginia at some campsite in like a silver RV, wouldn't you drive to Mendota, Virginia and search every single campsite and knock on the door of every single silver RV? I would. So I definitely think that she knew her daughter was no longer alive. The question that's left here is how many of these people were involved. I don't think that the biological father of Evelyn, has anything to do with it. He was, out of the state. He's serving with the Army, and he was stationed someplace else. Of course, I do have questions whether or not Megan's on and off again boyfriend of a couple of weeks, Hunter, was involved. And I do wonder if this was kind of a family affair thing. The other question would be, was this death of this innocent child an accident, or was it purposeful? And that would be kind of, I think, the most important thing. Even if it was accidental, you don't make up a story, file a false report, send everybody and their mother in the entire country on a wild goose hunt, worried for this child, when you know that she's gone and you know that she's buried somewhere. And now it seems like everybody in this case has completely shut down and isn't talking. And that's really suspicious to me. Even Tommy Boswell Sr., who is the one to make the initial report and say that he was worried about Evelyn, he is not talking any longer. He told reporters recently that they were a bunch of vultures. And William McLeod, who was the boyfriend of Angela Boswell, he had reporters at his house after the remains thought to be Evelyn were found, and they knocked on his door and they asked him, what he thought about it. And I guess he was like, hold on a second. And he closed the door and then he opened it back up a couple seconds later, pointed at their truck in the driveway, the news truck. And he was like, get back in your truck, drive away, get out of here. So he's not talking. And I want to talk about William McLeod for a moment, because I don't necessarily know if he was involved, but I do think that he knows more than he's saying. Apparently, on the day that William McLeod, Angela's boyfriend, was extradited back to Tennessee, he spoke with a bail bondsman over the phone in Kingsport. Derek Bishop, an agent with A. Hood Bonding, said he's assisted Angela Boswell and William McLeod with bonds for various charges in the past. It's bad when you have a bondsman, on speed dial. McLeod and Boswell were arrested in North Carolina last week while traveling in a stolen BMW, wanted in the search for Evelyn Boswell. Now, this bondsman who spoke to William McLeod on the phone, says that William McLeod claims to have only seen the missing Evelyn Boswell twice. Once when he and Evelyn's grandmother, Angela Boswell, began dating, and some point last November. This article says, quote, I just asked him if he knew where the baby was, and he made a comment that the baby's mother knows where the baby is, and it just seems like she's trying to pawn it off on Angela. Now, the thing is, McLeod's grandmother, I believe her name is Mary, she lives in North Carolina, and she said that William McLeod and Angela Boswell showed up at her house, and William McLeod was soaking wet, and he claimed that a pipe had burst at a nearby motel, and that's why he was wet, and then he asked her for money. And then later, after authorities found out about this, they actually searched a pond by her house, and that search turned up to be inconclusive. So they obviously thought that William McLeod was involved somehow, but the whole fact that he was soaking wet when he showed up to this woman's house asking for money, it's definitely suspicious, but it could be suspicious for other reasons, right? McLeod and Angela Boswell were obviously involved in illegal activity long before Evelyn ever went missing. So it could be that they were involved with a whole nother set of sketchy circumstances and have nothing to do with what happened to Evelyn. McLeod claims that he offered to take a polygraph test and also offered up his DNA, so he seems to be cooperating. There's also an article where it says that Angela and William McLeod have a past history with domestic violence. This doesn't surprise me. Days go by, months go by, years go by, circumstances change, but people typically don't. And since Angela Boswell had domestic issues with her previous husband, tried to stab him in the neck with a pen, it doesn't surprise me that she would continue to be having these issues in future relationships, especially considering the fact that if you don't get help and you don't try to figure out what's at the root of your problems with relationships and communication, you're not going to fix it, and most likely you will seek out the same type of person that gives you that same dynamic you've always had, because even though it's not healthy, even though it's not really safe, it feels comfortable and familiar to you. So that doesn't really surprise me, and once again, it doesn't suggest to me that either of them had anything to do with what happened to Evelyn. If anything, and this is just my theory, I think Megan Boswell is responsible for what happened to Evelyn, and yeah, I do think she tried to pawn it off on her mother. Her mother, Angela, could have been involved, could have helped in, hiding the body after or covering things up, but it did seem like Megan was trying to put it all off on Angela, and that's concerning. We're still waiting on autopsy results to come back on the remains that were found on Tommy Boswell's property. I think that once we have that information, we'll know more. I think the police already obviously know more. I do think that somebody talked while they were behind bars, either Angela or Megan. We don't know which at this point, but somebody must have said something to lead them to the place where they eventually found the remains. So it's really only a matter of time before we have a better idea of what actually happened here. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today. I'm sorry I'm a little off my game. I'm not feeling well. This video might actually go up before the part 2 of Dahlia DiPolito. I've been having insane copyright issues. First, Langley Productions, which is the Cops TV show, they copyright striked my video, so I had to remove that footage and replace it with the footage from the Boynton Beach Police Department. And then some random record company claimed a 1 minute part of the video saying that I used their song, when in reality, there's no song in there. There's no music in there. It's nothing. It's half of the clip is a police interview with Dahlia, and the other half is me talking about the video in my own words. There's no song. So this is one of those bogus copyright claims that companies will do to try to just get money off of you, hoping that you either don't catch it or you don't do anything about it. But the worst part is, even if I dispute it, they are the ones who ultimately make the decision about whether or not they're going to release the copyright claim. But since this is a completely bogus copyright claim and what they're doing is actually illegal, I already sent them, a message in the claim when I disputed it. And I was like, listen, I've already sent pictures of this and my lawyer has all the information. I will sue you just for the principle of the fact that you have caused me so much annoyance the past couple of days, just for the principle of the fact that you are trying to claim my own voice and my own words. I don't care how long it takes or how much money I have to pay. I will sue you and I will come after you to make sure you don't do this to anybody ever again. So it's just obnoxious. YouTube really needs to be better with helping their creators. They don't get involved with copyright claims at all, which allows these, bandits on YouTube to basically extort content creators and, torture them. And YouTube says, well, that's not our problem. You guys figure it out. But in the end, the content creators are always the one that end up getting screwed because the person who put the claim on the video has final say. It's just absolutely unbelievable. I'm so over it. Hopefully, we know more about what's going on with this case soon. I feel really horrible. I kind of have been trying to not allow my emotions to take over in this case with Evelyn because I wanted to give you guys all the facts, but we got a 15-month-old baby girl here who is most likely gone, whether it was an accident or it was purposeful. It's an incredible loss of life, and she was failed, once again, by every single person that surrounded her. This baby had no one, because if she had anybody, this wouldn't have happened. Thank you guys so much for being here with me. Stay kind and stay beautiful, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
What a levee don't break now. And the bottle's going straight down.